because there's no pressure then. You know, there's like, oh, I gotta be cute. Oh, I gotta, like, I totally would have retaken the first one anyway, but yeah, like now there's no pressure. Okay, so how about we, just land a little bit
already?
Yeah.
I said this is fine. I'm ready for my close-up video. Okay, so the question was.
Yeah, let me get my flowers and trees real quick. I forgot about this.
All right, well, I'm going to let people know what the question was.
Okay.
The question was, do you feel that being officially diagnosed with autism has supported you, and if so, in what ways?
Yes, it has absolutely changed my life for the better in many ways. I would say the first. It took a while though. There's been a lot of grief, a lot of like looking back and kind of and so I would say the first at least 6 months were really, really hard. But that's also super normal.
I haven't been diagnosed, and still when I read things about
like, wow.
autism, I feel grief.
Yeah.
I'm like poor me.
Yeah, totally.
I didn't have the support.
Yeah.
And like also internalize the shortcomings and character flaws.
You're nailing it. So there is a book that I'll, as soon as the name comes back to me, or I'll look it up, that every one of my doctors has suggested that I read.
Unmasking?
Is it Doctor? Yeah, I don't remember the guy. Well, we can look on it for sure, but
without unmasking written by a woman, but I haven't read it.
So at first it was just this incredible like grief and anger and like fuck, the whole goddamn life could have been different with just even just small changes. You know, and if I hadn't had to fight for every damn accommodation at work, that, you know, I always had doctors who were willing to be like, yeah, I'm gonna write you a note, you need support, but never was autism brought up. I did get assessed in college, and I was told that I was like, yeah, you have a severe learning disability is what I was told then. And I was like, I don't like those words. I don't agree. I understand that. Yeah, I'll take some of the accommodations you're offering, but fuck you. And I burned the report. I don't even remember I did keep it. I was like, fuck this shit. And also I was terrified of being, of having a label like autism. Never occurred to me, honestly, because when I was a kid, the only people who were diagnosed were, you know, cis middle class white boys, you know, and they got put in special ed, you know. I mean, it was like, I was like, oh God, don't tell me no. So anyway, so yeah, and yes, I would say the rage often was coming up because of like, now that I see the resources that are available and the support through people talking about it, and, you know, there's this like tremendous relief of, okay, I'm so glad to hear someone else saying, you know, these things. But yeah, the rage is just like, the things that I needed are actually so fucking simple, that the fact that I had to like be constantly, you know, gaslit, like, no, that's not possible, what you're feeling or what you're saying, or like, you're overreacting. That's one of the biggest ones. You're overreacting. And so, yeah, everything like just, I can't concentrate in an open bullpen environment. Can I please have some visual barriers? Can I wear headphones? Like, I could intuitively knew some of the things I needed, but fucking tooth and nail, I had to fight for every damn thing.
And you know, and nowadays I think whether or not you have
you don't
a
need
diagnosis, they're like, yeah, that seems doable.
Totally. Yes,
for a lot of like
a lot.
Those particular things for focusing and stuff, but also
yeah, in the past you had to fight for it. You had to get doctor's notes. You had to go through a whole thing.
I feel bad for grocery store checkers that are supposed to stand the whole time. I'm like, why are you having people stand?
And all the
like, it's absolutely
noises
not necessary for getting the job done.
No.
That's like the one career where I think they're just like tradition.
Yeah. So then once that phase kind of passed,
I do have to grab my phone because I forgot.
I couldn't reread I only read the assessment once, and there was a lot, especially the part, my mom's reports.
Your mom had to give it a report?
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Is that what's required?
No, but it's highly
sure
suggested.
My mom won't speak highly of me.
It took my mom a little while to come around. She was really nervous about it, and we just did it later in the process. It was like one of the last things. So yeah, that was probably one of the harder parts of reading the assessment. But the things that I got out of it at first was, okay, there is mathematical and professional validation that I'm not crazy, that yes, the level of awareness that I have is far beyond average humans, and so I'm like, oh, I do feel that. I am aware of that. One of the things that was I was going to say, one of the specifics was that I can tell more accurately often what someone else is feeling than they will either admit or recognize. And so for the doctor, and it was actually an intern that did the report, but I can definitely tell you about all that. They were like, yeah, I don't know. I don't remember what I was going to say there, but just these immense validations around, yes, you're really way over here, and you really need and should have accommodations, and it makes sense that you're just like, fuck normal work, because it's really not kind and really compatible. It's gotten better, and so that was the first 6 months. I tried reading the book, which might be called Unmasking, maybe that's the one, and I had to take breaks, and I did care for myself, and that I was like, okay, I can feel that I'm getting pretty wound up, so I'm going to leave it there, or I'm going to take a break for a couple weeks or whatever, and then just let it settle, and then think about all the things that whatever it was that I just read uncovered. And eventually I was able to go back to the assessment again, and I read it multiple times every so often over 3 months. I was really, really hurt that no one else asked to see it, my family, or Brian, so it actually took an entire year for Brian to, or almost I don't know. It was this last Christmas, that finally he read the damn thing, and that was a turning point too.
I'm gonna paraphrase what I think was happening, not for him, but for you, based on my, this assumption. So, but there's this level of see me.
Yes, very much.
See me.
Very much.
See me, and then go from there.
Right. I am not overreacting. I am not crazy. And so then once I kind of moved through that to a big extent, then I started to feel really empowered. And that was the part that really changed my life. Even just the beginning where it was really hard, that was still a change. I mean, it changed my life even then. I started actually telling people, and then I got pissed and stopped telling them because every fucking one of them would say, well, you don't look autistic. And then one motherfucker, this guy, he was like, well, I was a psychologist before I retired, and we just spent the entire weekend together at a retreat. He was like, I didn't see any signs of autism. And I was like, that is because I am an extremely high masker.
High masking,
extremely
and I saw that.
High. And so you don't know me. I was masking all that is me when I'm around people. I'm fucking trashed now. And I exhausted by being that part of me for so long. And so after that, I actually stopped telling people because I'm like, I can't have you, until y'all are starting to understand that we don't all look the same.
That guy's self worth is probably attached to knowing something.
Well, he's actually also from that time zone. There's a lot of people who don't understand.
I'm a professional, and my whole if I wasn't good at that, I'm a retired professional.
And
if I wasn't good
he
at that,
learned the wrong information is the thing. But doubling down on the wrong information.
Doubling down on it in retirement. Die on that hill, buddy.
Yeah. So, so it basically, once I started to what was I and actually reading the report with Brian. That was we did break it up. We didn't do it all at once. Um, that was a really huge turning point too, because then at least I was able to like he couldn't do that shit that he had been doing where like you're overreacting or no he would often be like no that's not what happened and really doing the traditional thing that people do. um, and so finally reading the report I was like see now do you understand a little bit better? And at first he was like, okay, yeah, I understand you a little better. And then like a few months later, after my therapist had said multiple times, like, you shouldn't be responsible for him to upgrade his like knowledge, but maybe you need to like, if you find one video or whatever that you think will help him, maybe get him started because he needs to know better. He needs to learn more and better to really support you.
To support you.
Right. To
And it's
understand
like,
and support
he doesn't
me.
ever have to learn that if that's not like if that's not his ultimate goal.
Right.
Right? Because we can't expect people just because we're with them to want what we want
Right.
for ourselves.
Right.
And it's like also, but like if you want for like
Mhm.
for me to be supported in this,
Mhm.
this is one of the steps required for
And
that.
that's what
and it's not like, oh, if you love me, because it's like,
No.
oh, I know you love me, but
Right.
also like but there are some things that like there are steps to get to, and one of
Right.
them is like so making sure like helping me be supported
right and understand what
does
they're saying with that.
actually require this.
Right.
Loving me doesn't require this.
Right. I honestly had to keep saying like you are treating me like I'm normal and I'm not fucking normal and I know that wasn't the words I wanted to use but that's what worked for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally I actually was always I was learning a lot from the videos I was finding and feeling really validated and sometimes I would tell him about it and he just would glaze over but finally I found a video that is like my favorite ever and because it's by a doctor and he was very like clear and direct and gave like it's just a fucking amazing video. He's outside, like everything about it's amazing. And I shared that one with him. And he actually even listened to it that very day, which was another way that I was like, okay, you're taking this seriously. And we didn't talk about it a lot, but he was like, I feel like I understand a little bit better about you. And then over the course of the next few weeks, like he started really making some changes in how he was being with me. We also had talked about, since I understand better what I need, we had talked about a number of times every time we would have one of these like, was, like these are the sort of things that would help me be able to keep, getting all wound up. So like, when you see me where you're starting to feel, that's when we take a break. That's when we take three deep breaths. That's when we stand up for hugs.
That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with autism.
No, but it breaks it breaks it.
Yeah. And like, I wanted to say something, about the normal, the word normal, because I think that one of the issues in our society is that we have this blanket idea of what normal is, and none of them. No, I don't. I don't know if I identify with it being a problem because I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
Or if I just assume everyone feels this way because that's what I've been conditioned to think. Everyone's like this. You're just not good at it.
Right. Yes. No, that's you're 100%
I don't know.
Right.
But I will say, like, what the people who I gravitate towards, it's like nobody's fucking normal. Like, what even is normal? We're all so individual, and it would be really convenient if we could all be cookie cutters. I mean, and really, like, it's a system that wants us to be cookie cutters, and not actually like our individual like connections with people. Even like to say I'm not normal is to say like you don't know my particular flavor of me,
right? And
like, do you want to?
Yep.
Do you want to know me? Because I'm willing to share that with you, but I'm also like can't. And this amorphous normal is just a moving target that is really, really a source of anxiety for me.
Right.
And that's always the way it's been for me.
Yeah, I understand.
But about the idea about the diagnosis, like making a difference, the way I would relate to that is, when I was diagnosed with Lyme.
Because it just make things kind of make a little more sense.
Yeah, it was just kind of like Probably a little bit different in that
Yeah.
it is like a potentially fatal illness.
Right.
You know,
Right.
whereas
For
autism
sure.
is
Not
not
gonna kill
fatal,
me.
but it does like come with a branding.
Yeah.
You
There's a
know?
whole lot behind it, but yeah. No, it's not
Yeah,
gonna
so
kill me.
this idea, but like there was a lot of grieving of the health that I could have had for the
'Cause you were
18
young,
years
right?
prior.
You were
Yeah,
young when
18.
you.
I was 13 when
Oh,
I first started
Jesus.
having
Yeah.
symptoms.
Oh,
And
gosh.
nobody helped me. And a lot of it
No.
was related to, passed off as ADD because I was diagnosed with ADHD as a child.
Mhm.
Personally, I have this like grudge against including the H.
Right. Yeah. Everything about the that was one part about the assessment is I had to keep complaining to the doctor, like, I don't like how these questions are written. Not only are they inaccurately written, so then I'm like trying to figure out what the fuck are they trying to ask because they wrote it so poorly, and they are so judgmental and like oriented purely
Do you
against like
feel
how I'm
normal?
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I just and she was like, "Yep, you're right. You absolutely are right. These are written by neurotypical people who don't understand your experience. Just try to get through it." And she let me like with it. I fucking hate that.
Did you ever read The Giver? Oh, it's a very, very it's commonly taught in schools because it's like this short book with a lot of allegory about society.
Okay, yeah, I
You
like
know?
those kind of books.
Huh?
I like allegory books. I think they're
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, but in it, there's this one character that it's a utopian society, and they don't come right out and say it, but they like kill people who don't fit into the society. Like only children that like the households are only allowed one boy and one girl, and blah blah blah, and that kind of thing. And and then they're released, like released from the community. Like this idea, and if you're of a certain retirement age, you're released,
Oh, yeah.
So they don't, and they take these injections or pills or something to like subdue emotions and stuff, so that everyone can get along because it's like they've learned from wars and things, and this is all what's best for people. You learn a little bit more about that. Anyways, they made a movie about it. They made a movie of it. But what they left out of the movie was something that always stuck with me, even as a young person, was that there was this one boy in his like age grade who I can't remember his name. I want to say like Lucas or something like that, but he remembered, like they would like laughingly be like, "Oh, you remember how he was a difficult one in like primary and like preschool type of setting where they were teaching children what they called accuracy of language." And he would say, "Want smack." For snack, like I want a snack, and the way that they taught him that accuracy of language was to smack him, and it's so strange to me that stuck in my mind at even a young age, because me with words. I'm like, there's a word for this, and I'm going to find it. Yeah. Like, and so this idea of these questions being written in a way that doesn't like adhere to words.
That was part of the process for me to like get through. Yeah, I think we should. There should be support groups around somebody who's trying to fill out the paperwork, because
one thing that could definitely go on my resume is communicates well in written and verbal. Written and verbal.
But the other thing that's really upsetting about that particular, I'm amazed that you remember that specific thing, because I don't know if you've learned this bit yet, but part of what they used to do to folks who were labeled autistic was like actual hitting, actual like
and things like that.
like that kind of
I did teacher would hit me in the head.
Yeah. But this isn't like assessments. This is like in the situation, this is in the situation where you are learning, you're basically beaten out of being autistic, like I didn't learn a lot about it because I was like, fuck that shit. Yes. But that's fucking horrible that they used to do that to people. It wasn't that long ago. But
long ago, like some people still do that with dogs and stuff,
Totally. Yeah. I hated the days when there was a fucking paddle in the classroom, and I did see kids hit. I think I only got hit like once, probably in kindergarten or something. But the fact that teachers could fucking hit kids, but then I brought that up with my mom and her husband once, and they laughed Like my stepdad was telling me this whole story, but like the teacher like lined us all up, smacked us all so hard that he broke the like paddle, and then he started throwing shoes at us, and he's laughing, and I like because that was fucking normal. And so I'm like, okay, well, us getting smacked with a paddle kind of sucked. My mom was always talking about how the nuns would, the ruler over, like corporal punishment in school. So it's come a long way, but it's like it leaves an impression. You got hit on the head. That sucks. That sucks.
I didn't want to go to school. My mom asked me, and I said she hits me in the head and tells me not to be stupid.
Oh Jesus! I'm so sorry that happened to you.
Went to the principal and was like, something's happening to my daughter. And I remember after I didn't want her to tell anybody because then it would make it worse for me. In my mind, it was like my little 7-year-old, like,
yeah.
And also the same teacher who got me diagnosed with ADHD, and I was too active, too hyper, But I remember the teacher saying a different time, like, well, if I hadn't something like trying to make it like an apology, like, oh, I didn't, I don't mean it that way, type of thing, and I'm being like, like just smiling and accepting the apology because I felt awkward.
And you're 7.
Yeah, maybe even 6.
Oh God.
And
adults are supposed to be different
And then there was a time where I was like talking to somebody during story time, and she was like, if I hadn't gotten a talking to, then, that I would reach over and give you a smack. I need you to pay attention.
Did she hit anybody else?
I don't remember.
You're going to be pretty more focused on you.
I do know that I got like teased. So like, I think it was particularly mean, and she did zero me out at a time where I was fidgeting at my desk, and she like said, something like, you're always, I need you to stay still. You're always, your hands are always in your desk, in your blah, in your nose, right? And said, and then I got teased for like picking my nose. And I was like, first of all, I thought everybody did.
Right, and they do.
Yeah.
Everybody
But now the teacher said I picked my nose in front of everybody.
God,
and I remember Amanda Anthony laughing at me. Like, just like, this person who I thought was my friend was suddenly not my friend.
Yeah.
And I was like, I remember I had this glorious collection of pencil shavings.
Yeah. What did you like about pencil shavings? You'd get the perfect.
Yeah.
I always love that too. Yeah. I don't like electric when it's like fucking electric. I get it.
And it was just like almost like a rose. And it was like had whatever color that was around the outside of the pencil. And I would like very gently put it into my desk. And at the end, like when it would come time to clean out our desk, I'd have like all these crushed. They lost their importance after a while, but for a little while it was, and sometimes that's what I would be like doing in my desk is like arranging my things and looking at them, and and that's when I got yelled at. I remember it was like connected to the pencil shavings, and I thought to myself, I wasn't doing anything.
Right. And that was one thing that's helped me a lot too, is noticing like the worst offenses of the way I was treated and the way that it hurt. Like that was often like okay, what's the opposite of that? And then that would help me identify what does help me or what would have helped me, and kind of like do the trauma healing, around those in a much gentler way. And that's another piece that it is really hard because a lot of memories come up. A lot of like stuff that what could you do but stuff
I'm
it
laughing
down
still because of the face you made as soon as you recognized what I was talking about. Like, that is satisfying.
We need let's get some good pencil sharpeners, because we got to show people the joy of beautiful sharp, I'm glad that my face accurately well, and honestly, I'd get just as excited about the organizing. Like that was actually one of the so that was part of the process, is like reading what my mom's judgment of me was around my like obsessive organizing and like
I wish I had
resetting
that.
it, like
I wish I had that particular trait
well
because I'm so like. You tell me how to do it, I can do it over and over and over again.
We all-
But coming up with my own solution for organization has actually never been a strong suit for me.
and that no,
And I'm
it's
like,
commonly
Riley
not.
loves
Yeah.
file management, and he says, I just think about it as being making piles
Mhm.
and then arranging the piles. And I'm like, you're saying that like that makes it better.
Right,
Right?
yeah.
Just think about the joy of making piles. And I'm like,
it's only joys for you.
can you teach me how to make piles?
Yeah.
Everything is related to everything in my
Yeah.
world. There is no
Right.
piles really,
Right,
except
right.
for summer clothes and winter
See
clothes.
what's those easier.
Yeah,
I
those
love
are the
that.
different clothes. But then I think, okay, pants
Mhm.
and sweaters.
Yeah.
But also a middle layer.
Yeah.
Those have different piles in
Right.
my closet where
Right.
they're folded
Yeah.
on shelves so I can
Mhm.
see them, not in drawers.
So you intuitively identify a lot of
That took a
tools.
lot of time
I
to get to,
bet.
though.
Right. I
It took
bet.
living in other countries where shelves were the norm.
Yeah.
Because we already had dressers and closet, and I hate
Right.
hanging things up.
Right. Right. Yeah. One of the yeah. What was it? Oh yeah. So when I read that my mom was really judgmental, she was she about like the way I dressed, what I would get mad about, like I don't know, but the way I played was really annoying to her apparently. But what I found, like with that specific one, I was like, wait a minute, I actually really like doing this. I really like unpacking our house, and I actually like rearranging the boxes and things so that everything fits really nicely. I feel really good doing that. And my doctors and the books and everything, the videos all say, do the things that feel good. And so and do them as much as you can, because that actually fills you instead of the depletion of avoiding it. So when my mom is like the judgment that she had, I was like, okay, great. So she interpreted my behavior in a certain way when in fact it was something different, my innate self.
Mm-hmm.
Now I can go back and I can like reclaim my actual natural essence,
That to me,
because I now understood better, and it helped me identify what I really love to do.
everything you're saying makes
Mhm.
sense to me, and
Mhm.
also fills me with anxiety a little
Mhm.
bit, thinking
Mhm.
like, oh, I don't even know.
Right? No, I didn't either.
I don't
That's what
even
I'm saying.
know what I love doing. Somebody asked
Right.
me what I do
No, I
for
get
fun, and I was like,
Yeah,
I don't even know.
that's one of the things the assessment helped with. Really, it really did, because I didn't either. Honestly, every like psychedelic journey I've done for like the past 5 years, one of my like requests was like, please help me recognize my actual true essence. Who am I?
I do like looking for things.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love finding things.
Yeah. And you're magical about finding things out
I'm
in the
so
world.
good at
Yeah,
finding things.
yeah,
I
yeah.
really am. It's
You
such
really
a
are.
high. It's
Yeah,
such a high.
totally. Yep. Yep.
Like, I mean, I can walk along and see, like, I'll like step forward and like take a step back and be like, look at that butterfly leaf clover. And people are like, how did you see that while we were walking along?
Yep.
I'm like, I don't know.
See, that's one of your superpowers. Because I was able to redefine things that everybody's like, that's fucking weird. You know what? That's actually a superpower. And it helped me actually really own it.
That's why I love going to the bins.
Right. But you start really
Like,
owning how the superpowers. And I no longer felt like I don't have to fucking squash my superpowers just because none of y'all get it and don't understand doesn't mean. And so I was able to stand more in my power and be like, you know what? I can understand why you don't think that I have this awareness or, or have perceived something different. That's fine. You can believe that. That's not actually what's happening for me. I am. And I drew a lot. I think I've mentioned this before. I drew a lot of pie charts and other like to make you see. Okay, so here's the pie chart of every possible thing to perceive in this moment, and here's you what you're perceiving, and here's me, and they barely overlap or only a little bit. And so why not, instead of like telling me you're wrong because you didn't happen to all have the same experience as me, how about instead you're like, wow, I've just completely expanded the possibility of understanding by teaming up with my awareness. And so when that kind of stuff has come up where he says something judgmental about, well, yeah, so you just did this or that, I'm like, you keep forgetting that not only have I spoken to far more than 10,000 individuals, and many of them about deep topics, especially relationships or, like personal stuff, how to move in the world, how hard it is at work, like all of these things. That's on top of it's been one of my special interests my entire life is like to try and understand humans because I feel like I'm not one of them. And I've studied it deeply and I've watched like so many people in relationship shows.
You have Aquarius in your chart?
Do I have what? I don't know, probably. But so I'm like, you need to remember where I'm coming from. I have far more experience. And that doesn't even count my year as a radical pleasurist, where like everything I was doing was around like awareness of these sort of things when he's like giving me shit about the stuff that I know a lot. So I was so strong and firm every time I had to say that for a past little while. It's actually a recent one that he stopped really pretty quickly. He's really stopped doing a lot of the things that were really particularly painful because now he has come to understand better. And it helps me be like, I don't actually care if my family doesn't understand. I don't care if my family still gives me shit about whatever it is that I'm doing that annoys them. Because I at least I do have people around me who understand and accept me. And my partner in particular is doing his best to learn, is doing his best to try to, be a better partner.
Well,
and
I've always said there are worse traits a person can have than being annoying.
Right. Yeah, there's that too. And really, what annoys
or being malicious.
What annoys you, other person,
Right.
is maybe that's just a sign you just don't like me.
It's me. I can't remember. My mind is a little dull.
No, we went over a lot too.
Right. Yeah. And
So
I'm
does that? Do you feel
I
like
know.
that?
I know.
Mhm.
Was your assessment covered? By
Well,
insurance?
no, but no, it takes forever. It can be covered, and I'm pretty confident you probably would be able to qualify for it being covered. The problem is there are very few people who do the assessment that take OHP, and there's a humongous number of people who want to be assessed. So that's not the path that I chose not to go that path because I didn't want to wait. And the universe brought me a magical person as one of my writers. And we started in a completely different place with the conversation. And before I dropped her off at the airport, she had told me the doctor that she had been assessed by and that she took like sliding scale. And, and so I was like, oh God, I finally, because I couldn't find anybody. I was looking and looking, I couldn't find anybody that was like less than like $5,000 fucking dollars. And so I called her name is Dr. Hagerman, and said that I was low income and she has an intern and I only had to pay $75 an hour for the intern. And they actually did a lot more than that. So I probably spent a total of, I haven't totaled it, but I think it was close to $500, which every penny. And everything about them was sweet. Like the first time when we scheduled it, she was like, I'm sorry, it's going to be a little while, but we could get you in about 3 weeks. And I was like, what? I thought I was going to wait 6 months. I'm fucking delighted. Yes.
Like, I won't be ready before then either.
Right.
My schedule is fast.
Right. Totally. And so like, that was another like absolute gift. They were able to get me in really soon. And they really gentle about everything. And like, it really was like from start to finish, except for the separate from the assessment that was hard, but the assessment process itself was amazing. It really was the best that I could possibly hope for. And then reading the report and coming to understand what they said. And I still there's still stuff that I'm like, you know what, you got that little fact wrong. So I'm still doing that thing that we both do. And like, this isn't accurate, but now I have a list of things that if I ever did want to go work for someone else, I could be like, this is what I need.
Yeah.
But also now I know to give it myself.
Yeah, that could be good. And
well,
I watched a video, and when I say I watched a video, I mean a few minutes of it before I was like, come back to this one.
I have a big list of things to watch too.
I didn't watch the whole thing, but it talked about like things you'll see for people who like, and one of them was like competency gaps.
Right. Yeah. Those fucking words.
It was he is an autistic person himself, and he's like, for me, like it's really hard for me to read and write, and so if you send me something in a PDF, I can't put it through my thing, you know, that reads it out loud to me,
Right,
you know, and
right.
so like that's a struggle that I have, and I was like, oh shit, you know, like competency gaps, like it's like especially in high masking individuals,
Yes.
because people think you're so bright,
Right.
and then you have this like dirty like skeletons in the closet,
right?
Like, if they only knew, and that's one of my hardest.
Yeah, I just like to put my bottle in. Yeah, keep going. Yeah,
yeah, where it's like. I don't know if this is probably a commonly experienced thing, but I know for me, it's like been such a fucking challenging thing to work with, and it comes up in different phases of my healing journey. I'm like, I'm stupid, and they're gonna find out.
Yes. So much of that,
and it's so painful because it's also like crippling in a way, because I'm like, I can't do these things that they probably assume I can do.
Right.
And I don't know if I can't do those, then I'm probably not eligible for the job.
Right.
You know, and I'm like, just like, I really do want to work for someone else. I'm very like, I don't know, like, so like you drive for Lyft and stuff, but also you have to get a fucking new car. You have to pay what, a lease on that thing?
Well, I would have gotten I would have gotten a new car anyway. I've entered a phase of my life where I'm unwilling to have risky cars, and leasing is really actually.
My car's not risky, but it's just noisy and tore up on the inside.
Yeah, I've paid my dues with cars, so yeah, I would have had that car anyway even if I didn't do Lyft. But Lyft is joyful for me in a lot of ways.
I just hate sitting that long.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get up in a little bit before we go for a walk. I want to look at the tax thing, because if I do have to print something, I can walk to the library and I can get it printed.
Yeah. So, there are two things I want to say. You know, yes, I hope you understand that. Yes, I understand that so well. Like, billions of times I've said I'm stupid to myself because of all that shit. The thing that I recently realized, though, is that for whatever reason, the definition that people use as stupid really is haven't learned it yet. You never learned how to do this, so you're stupid.
I'm on a huge kick about that lately. Right. Especially since I won't say names, but there are persons in my life who associate with being immature.
Right.
And I'm like, what is maturity if not experience?
Right.
And like, how can you have it if you haven't had that?
Right.
You know? Absolutely. And like, also, that's good medicine for me. Because there's things like, I'm not stupid. Of course I don't know how to do it. I never had to do it before. And also, nobody showed me. And so, like, if I try to figure it out on my own, it's coming from a reason, like a logistical place with zero experience trying to solve that issue. And so maybe I won't get it right the first time, because I'm working from my experience I do have, which does not cover this particular need. So I'm trying to take the tools I have to fix something that needs different tools. And I don't even know that I need different tools because I've never fucking done it before, and no one showed me.
Yeah.
So I've never seen it. Whether or not they've showed me intentionally, like I haven't witnessed it. To even be like, oh, I've seen that. I've seen that. I know I need something different than this.
Right.
Even if I don't know how to use that thing, I know I need something different. Like I haven't even seen it.
Right. The fucking assumptions in this world of like, what do you mean you never learned how to do blah, 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 that we all learned? Well, fuck you. I didn't learn. And can someone just show me? You know, like, no, I don't know how to clean a toilet and I'm 19 years old. I had a fucking outhouse. I never learned. Because, I mean, something like that, I got a bunch of shit about. What do you mean you don't know how to clean a toilet?
That I can clean the bathroom.
No.
Before you.
No. It's, you know what I mean? There's all these basic things that everybody thinks you already know, when in fact they had to learn it too. And then,
or maybe they didn't even have to learn it.
Maybe not.
Maybe they were around it and they just absorbed that information because that's where they were raised in. And also, like, let's talk about like privilege,
right?
You know, like in a world that's like if you if you get to think that this is common knowledge,
Right.
privileged.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes.
If you get to think that this is just that easy,
Mhm.
you're privileged in that way. And I know that I'm privileged in that way in a lot of ways.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like some of the things I'm like, I don't know how I learned, but then I look back at my parents and I'm like, oh, definitely from my dad.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
or definitely from my mom.
Right.
My parents, I'm like,
Yeah.
like I have this, I think when you consider that autism and ADHD and all the other things are genetic,
And
then you look at the ways that
yeah.
and then
Right.
also their individual thing
Right.
was like aimed against you and your
Right.
natural unfolding. Like, that's not normal. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Right.
It needs to be different.
Right.
Because that's what they're comfortable with.
Right.
And their system
and-
they've decided works.
and they're systematizing you.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, but also like how much compassion, you know, what it must have been like for them to. I just think to myself how much of the things that I think are shortcomings in me that I hide from the world are things that they're doing and have been doing their whole life, and now they're like entrenched in this being. They need to be who they are because changing does feel fucking inaccessible.
Yeah.
You know, and like we all have different ways of defending that after a certain point.
Right. And there's the you know, the thing where often if somebody's mistreating another person, often they're part of what they're reacting to is the part of them that they hate, themselves that they hate, that they're seeing in you. And so, like, yeah, the okay, mom.
Well,
pretty sure you're autistic too. Maybe that's part of the reason. I never said this. Maybe that's part of the reason you were so fucking mean to me.
Two ends of the spectrum, definitely, and I have that within me. These two ends within me, like.
Wait, I'm not sure what you mean by two ends.
Like my mom is like clutter.
Oh, okay.
And my dad is like fading spot on his like one portion of his bedding is sun faded because it's the same blanket folded in the same
yeah.
you know the same
his
window
thing. Yeah, your
like
dad.
just you know folded socks.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yep.
you know, and my mom's like, oh, this, you need this and that. You know, and they keep separate bedrooms, and it's like you walk into one, and it's like, has anyone been in here in years? You know, because it's just like everything's exactly where it was, you know. And my mom's is like, look at this new thing I got, and this thing, and they're just kind of like,
yeah,
the way that they also respond to each other is very different. My dad's very like, he'll tell you how you should be, and my mom won't do that to him in the same exact way, but let me rephrase this. My dad's very good with words, hard to punch a hole in his structure of words, like even if it's something that is entirely made up by him, it's like you can tell there's no changing his mind. Rigid. My mom, not good with words, and so she'll avoid them if that is the best, if it's her assumed best way to navigate away from something that she doesn't have the capacity to argue against. So, like, it's just interesting that, like, I get that from my dad. Like, we used to call it a sharp tongue. It has a sharp tongue. He can get his point across and make it hurt.
Yeah.
And my mom will try that game and then be like, not good enough to play it. Like it's not skilled in that way. So she'll get shut down by the person who is more skillful with words.
Yeah.
So like, oh, you want to play? And I'll fucking shut you up real quick.
I once told Brian, I do not want you to keep you keep bludgeoning me with your fucking intellect, and I'm done with that. And then after a while, we eventually got to the point where he was like, he could tease about, am I bludgeoning you with my intellect? Yeah. Can we chill a little bit? It's gotten a lot better. Okay, I have one more big thing that made a big difference to get the diagnosis is my burnout was, now I can look back and go, okay, the reason why all of the healing that I did when we called it adrenal burnout and gut
Adrenal fatigue,
dysbiosis
yeah,
and
I
all
remember
that
I
stuff.
remember I met you when you
Right,
were like
right.
experiencing
Yeah.
adrenal fatigue.
And so but then I would get to a plateau where like, okay, nothing's working anymore. And this has been my whole life. Like something will help for a while and then it stops helping. So what I finally was able to understand, I'm like, okay, yeah, all of that was true because I did improve so much from, the things we did for those specific medical concerns. But now I understand, like, that's caused, as I already knew, from long-term stress, but also extraordinary deep long-term autistic burnout, which is
Yeah.
very different from like everybody else is getting, kind of burnout, and requires different sort of recovery.
I'm frustrated by this because
So
I'm like, how do I differentiate? If we're going to go down this trail, how do I differentiate what was Lyme related
right.
and what was
It takes a little bit.
related, but also this idea that like it doesn't really matter which one was which
No,
because
it does. It does because they need, it's different things. There's different ways to so like for if it's an autistic kind of burnout situation, then some of the ways to recover from that are literally just resting or doing your thing that you love.
Like what Lyme is like.
Yeah, and I don't know about Lyme,
Yeah.
but it took me a while to differentiate because I've been living in this constant like, fuck, when am I going to get sick again? Oh, I'm feeling down. Am I getting sick again? Like, so there's just been this low grade kind of constant
PTSD.
like shit. Yeah, that
Fear of your own body.
at any moment something's gonna happen and I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna get so sick again, and now I can go, okay, actually, now I'm learning the ways that I can support the autistic part of myself to not only recover from burnout, but also to hear all these others going, it sometimes takes a long time and you need more recovery time than someone who's just like quote unquote normal burned out. Like it's different. It's different and it needs different things to recover. And the good news is when you recover some of the like pieces that are truly the autistic burnout aspect, the other health issues start to maybe become more clear or more like because everything's more intense.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is that I don't know that it's this and this. I think it's like how do like these things work together.
Right. And so then once you're able to kind of identify, like I'm sure you are an expert. I know you're an expert in like every modality that you have learned so far to like help the Lyme, that situation in every aspect of you. But starting to learn the ways that you can now support the way you are neurologically, wired, the way our nervous systems are wired differently. Like learning all of that helps me.
I really
helped
do
a lot.
need to. I do need to. And like
it's so
and
validating.
since you're such a fan of crying,
Yeah.
I will share this
Yes, it's okay.
thought because it might evoke tears.
Yeah.
But like there was a hot minute there when I was going through healing Lyme and getting to the point where I was healthy enough to think, okay, I can now get a job. And then thinking, but my brain doesn't work well enough. And thinking like, did having Lyme as a teenager while my brain was growing mess me up?
Right.
And like doing like mushrooms to be like, I'm gonna rewire my brain. I'm gonna regrow neural synapses because I'm broken. And because I didn't stand a chance. That my brain didn't. I was, like MTHFR is ultimately chronic malnourishment.
Interesting. I never heard that.
Well, yeah,
but I
because
haven't
if your body
studied it
can't
yet.
use, if your body can't use or metabolize
Oh,
folate,
duh. Okay, of course.
which
Yeah, it's
is
logical.
required for dopamine, serotonin, toxin removal from the body, and protein synthesis. Like,
Wow.
and if you're eating,
Mm-hmm.
living off of cereal and honey buns like I did, then I'm getting toxins added to my system that make it even harder to get that thing.
Yes.
And then there's this malnourishment piece, then Lyme disease by 13. And then also, let's be real here, highly likely I was autistic by then,
And really
not,
totally unsupported.
yeah,
and
and so
like
like there's this like, why am I broken? Why am I not good enough? Why can't I figure it out? And it's because I was sick. That's now I have an excuse for being not smart.
Right. But it's not
Yeah.
smart word. But yeah, I know that that's the word that it's been used all this time. But
Yeah, and I think that the not smart fear started long before I was sick. Because being like, I remember being 7, 8,
right, before your essential self had been like,
just being told I was, a retard, or that mom loves you more because you're stupid,
oh Jesus,
or you're stupid if you think that blah blah blah, when it's clearly something I think.
Right, totally.
Like
all that invalidation.
Yeah, or
judgment.
just like my mom was so good. She was so like, she was so in my corner, even though she didn't know what I needed. But she was, and I mean, but I was put on. I was in that string of kids who were put on medications young. I was 7 when I was taking Ritalin.
And Ritalin's what comes like
Ritalin is speed.
Oh, okay.
But it has the opposite effect for someone who's hyperactive, and I think it's because it causes burnout. I think it speeds you up so much that you're just like, kind of like,
I've always wondered what the results of early medication.
Oh, yeah. And then by the time I was 12, I was on antidepressants and sleep medication. Because I was taking
basically
time
counteracting the motherfucking...
and counteracting the other stuff. So I was on Wellbutrin, Paxil, and an experimental one that was short-lived between Ritalin and Adderall called Dexedrine, which now is like the basis of Dexatrim. And it had suppression of appetite as a side effect, and I lost 30 pounds as a 12-year-old.
You didn't have it.
They didn't have it, and my but also that's right around the time where I was getting symptoms from Lyme disease. And so when I was having symptoms from Lyme disease, they're like, it's probably a side effect of this medication. We'll switch to the medication. And, it might be PMS. Like, it must be like hormones. And like, I have chronic pain in my knees. My knees hurt all the time. And Mom's like, why do her knees hurt? She's too young for that. And they're like, growing pains. Like every symptom was explained away.
Right.
And, I did get test mods and things like that, but, like, I just remember my poor mom being like, what do you need? And, like, I didn't know.
Right.
And even as, like, a teen, like, I say my mom's not the best with words. My mom will be like, I'd say something, and I'd tell her all this stuff that I was feeling and thinking, and she'd be like, and I'd be like, Mom, what do I do? And she'd be like, I don't know, babe. You've always been smarter than me. And so I know that that's like a secret thing too. Like she thinks she's not smart. She go, honey, we both, like recently, she was like, honey, we both know that smart's not my strong suit. And I go, that's not true. What you lack in those qualities that you think are smart, like you make up for in creating beauty in this world. You are so freaking talented intuitively. Like this space, like people come into our home and think this should be in a magazine. And it's not like she's got the unlimited funds. It's not like a wealthy.
She just does a good job.
She just knows how to take her money money and make it into something
Mhm.
beautiful. And that's where I get it. Where I'm
Right.
like, oh, I have this like, oh, I have this
Mhm.
piece of furniture and I'm gonna fix
Right.
it. That comes from my mom.
Right. So she has those strengths.
She's just,
And
yeah.
she's also had that, well, you're not good at these kind of things that indicate intelligence. And so since you're not good at that, that's not your strong suit. That's not your strong suit. That's not your strong suit. So she's been, crushed in that way too. I'm really glad that you were able to like, this is what you're amazing at, Mom. And it's so sad because, there's so often there's a couple that it's like, if you teamed up on your strengths instead of, when
Trying to
you're
get the
not
other
like
person.
me, so you're,
So you're a waste of time.
Right,
Like, why are you spending money on that?
yeah. Instead of let's team up and I can use my intellect rather than to bludgeon you to like help you think through some things that you haven't been able to identify because that's just a different kind of thinking than is your strong suit. I can't figure out how to decorate the house.
No,
Heaven
heaven forbid.
Right.
Heaven forbid
So
one, heaven forbid that the
Mhm.
person who identifies and relies on being
Mhm.
smart admit that they don't know how to do anything.
Right. Yeah. So really it's the other one that gets added in is what's trauma and what's neurodivergence, because those also have a lot of similarities in how it presents.
Well, that doesn't surprise me because of the
Mhm.
way trauma affects the brain.
Right. Yeah, that's
Did you read The Body Keeps the Score? I think I loaned you their book. I give you a whole bunch of books.
Right, yeah.
You
No,
have
I
it?
don't think that was Mom because I already had that one. I've
I
never
don't
been
know
able to
where it
get
went.
through it. And what I've heard a lot recently is that actually that now, like, while it was kind of like this is the Bible of like understanding, now it's like actually it's not very trauma informed. And yes, it's hard to get through because it's really not written for the layperson. And so the piece about it really not being very trauma informed, and there were some specifics given to me that I don't recall. That I was like, okay, now I'm not so bummed I never got through that one.
No, it was a hard read. It's
Mhm.
not trauma informed because it's case study after case study of like horrible trauma, people who've gone through these traumas, and you're reading it and you're like, wow, the world is a hard place.
Yeah.
And I was reading it it was required reading for the yoga teacher training program that I was in.
Yeah.
Right after my best friend died. Like, within the weeks that he, within 2 weeks after his death, I started reading this book because I had to get ready to go. He died July 18th, a week exactly before my birthday, and I was starting school September. And so I signed up for this program kind of late. Honestly, they shouldn't have let me in.
Really?
Yeah, no.
Were you too like?
It was because of the amount of work that they were like, by the way, all of this has to get done before. They should have had I'm so annoyed with this people. Anyways, I've told them many times, like, listen, no, I'm not going to come back to your next offer.
Right.
You handled everything so fucking poorly.
Right.
And I'm willing to have the conversation about that with people that you may encounter that have real world situations like I did.
Right.
Anyway, but one thing that I found interesting about it is that the way it talked about how like the brain, like those fight, flight, freeze, submit.
Oh, it uses submit instead of fawn.
Well, fawning.
Or is it a little different?
Fawning is a really like I being the way I am about words, I'm like, I don't like fawning as a term in general because some people think fawning is like,
that's
let
true.
me teach you these things.
That's true. Yeah.
You know? And other people use fawning as synonymous for freeze because a fawn stays still.
Right.
Which is no different than freeze. So
Right,
why are we adding it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
so
fawning is more like
verbiage.
fawning like, oh, she fawns all over him. And fawning is more of like a trauma response, like a conditioning around like if I placate this person, I won't get hurt.
Right.
Which is similar to submit actually, because submit is something, but the difference being that flight, freeze, submit, and what happens with submission is. It's a state in which all of these are actions. Fight, flight, freeze. They're like, okay, I'm doing a thing that's like preserving my safety.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, like a mouse will like stay still when, because if a cat sees it run, then they'll go. So this is a skill. Like they're like it's an educated choice that this is like, maybe it's instinctual, but there's like skill to it, and like knowing when to do that. Submission is what happens when you've gotten to a point where you're like, there's no escaping this threat. There absolutely isn't. So I submit to it, but what happens at that phase is that the brain does something that says, okay, we need to avoid you feeling and cognitively registering the unthinkable that is happening right now. This is so terrible. We need to preserve the mental capacities, shut down blood flow. And it shut down blood flow to the prefrontal cortex and to the area of the brain that puts things into chronological order, which is why when people have it, it's stored in the body. When people have like a memory of it come up from something, it's a flashback. They think it's happening at that time because it was never chronologically stored in the brain as a past event. It's something that's suddenly happening now, and it's because the brain is like this final, like, okay, well, we're just going to delete that file, but it doesn't actually get deleted. It just gets buried somewhere, which is also why people who experience a specific type of trauma are more likely to experience that same trauma over and over and over again, because the things that led up to it happening trigger that response where their brain just like, I saw it happening, but I didn't stop it. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't change it, which is why like people who have been raped or something tend to find themselves in scenarios that it happened over again. And people are like, why would you let that happen again? Shouldn't you know better? Didn't you learn from the last time? But the brain literally is like, ooh, and they like go on and like a robotic autopilot because they're like their higher functioning doesn't have blood flow to that portion of the brain. Yeah. And so that's where EMDR and tapping and things, that's what, if you relive the traumatic experience and do this thing the whole time and you like go into detail about it, which is often
really re-traumatizing.
Well, only if it's not. It's only re-traumatizing if the person's reliving it, because then they think of it, they have the somatic experience of it happening again. But EMDR, they find it that there's something about the consistent effort to remain, to keep this like task up that helps the brain put it into chronological order as a past event, so that way when it comes up in conversation or something, it's more of a memory that you can cope with and you can deal with, and you can suddenly like free up that energy. And I personally have done EMDR for rape, and it was awful. I mean, it was exhausting to like tell this person, my therapist, these details that no one ever wanted to fucking hear. Let's face it. You know, like if it comes up for me, people are like, I don't know how to hold space for this. And so it just reaffirms this, like, this is awful. No one wants to hear about this. There's no place for this in society. I just have to hold this and keep it to my grave, but it's also crippling me. And it's coming up in moments where I'm like doing dishes, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know how to get rid of this. And I looked for a therapist who did EMDR and did like stuff like that. And so we did EMDR, and I like, she talked me through like, you can say anything, and in fact, the more detail, the better. And I was like, like, you know,
she's holding you in the experience of it coming up again, is what it sounds
we
like.
Invoked it coming up again.
Invoked it, yes, but also is with you,
and then she's, you know, being like, okay, keep your eyes going, and are you tapping? Because we're on a video call, it's telehealth, and I'm like. You know, like, and I'm like, and then, you know, like, I'm just like going through it, and she's like, okay, yeah, you know, and then there'd be like this, like I'm wanting to break down and cry, and she's like, and I know you're feeling it, and keep it going, you know, and I'm like, and then there's like this, like, like you get to this point where you're like, okay, I think that's all I can do, and then. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have been driving after that, but I did. But after I drove, I was driving, and I like had so much creative
it's like boom,
stuff come up because it just had created space. Yeah.
Have you ever heard of brain spotting?
No.
So I've only heard of it once from this friend of mine who she told me it's very similar to EMDR, but you don't have to say out loud the trauma. And because she'd had like such a horrific like rape experience, right one street off of U of O. She went to U of O. She worked at U of O her entire career, and there was always this one street right next to campus because she could never go anywhere near because it's where it happened. And she couldn't even tolerate the idea of therapy or EMDR, and she was like, I did this brain spotting, and there was a little different. She explained to me it was slightly different, but the main key is she didn't have to speak it. She didn't have to feel as though she was reliving it necessarily. But she was like, literally the next day, I walked down that street and didn't realize that I did. I looked around and went, oh, I just walked down the street. And I didn't. I'm not losing my shit. I just walked down that street. And it just like, and so she was like, you got to find brain spotting, Heather. and I tried a little bit, and I couldn't really, I don't know, I kind of, it's just one of those things, you try to look it up and then you forget about it. But
right, yeah.
And so I tried to find it specifically for my daughter, because she did go to a couple of the pre-sessions for EMDR, and when it started to get to the point where she needed to be very specific about what she was there for, she was like, nope, not doing it. I will not speak to it. So it's also part that she was probably
has something to do with the person too, but like
Mm-hmm.
for me, there was something really healing, like being like, I can speak about this,
Right,
and I'm not
right.
going to be like, I mean, like honestly, you talk about rape, and you think, that you think one might think, well, I guess what I want to say is that the people in your life who have been your confidants are also the people who are going to be most hurt by the information that you're giving them. Like, it's hard to fucking hear that someone you love and care for had this happen to them right under your nose, and then they have to think about it, and now what? They go to bed with that thought in their mind? So it's like, it's really, really like, where does it live? You can't talk about, you don't talk about it casually to strangers for sure.
Right.
And like, and then also you can't talk about it to your loved ones because it does fucking impact them. It really does. I mean, like, nobody wants to think about those things. Nobody wants to think about those things. So that's why I'm like, just so freaking grateful for the people out there doing the work, like therapists, like that, my therapist said, there's nothing you can say here that's not allowed.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, you sure?
Yeah. I get it. Yeah. I had fucking therapists say that and then retract or say, no, okay, maybe we need to talk about hospitalization. So, so there's also, so I'm really, really relieved to hear this. Really sounds like a really positive experience with something really fucking hard to go through.
And you know what else? This particular therapist also combines parts work.
Oh, so she's
so
really,
like I'm doing so when EMDR comes up as like a need, it's like EMDR is most appropriate for a specific traumatic event.
So like chronic trauma is not so great.
Chronic trauma is really good with parts work because then the body is like, okay, well, let's talk to your shoulder. What's it saying?
Yeah.
Like
I need to work with somebody who does parts work.
And I personally prefer parts work, like the amorphous part work, over internal family systems, because I think internal family systems can have the possibility of like conflating.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your inner mother, and then like, oh, the inner mother, the inner, like these names that we have associated with the actual people in our life.
Yeah.
And so then that can get like a little confusing, whereas parts work is like, let's talk to your shoulder.
Right.
What does it want to be called?
Right.
What is it saying? Let's invite it here.
Right.
And what, like, do you have something you want me to call you? Like, they'll speak directly to your shoulder, like that, like, okay, all right, tummy. This is what she says. All right, tummy. Is it all right if we talk with you? Oh. And they're like, yeah. And she's like, okay, do you mind if Lyndsay talks on your behalf and translates? And I'm like, Like, and almost always it's a small voice. It's like, yeah.
Yeah,
For me.
like, I've
Yeah.
been hurt before.
Yeah, what do you, like, well, Lindsay's been noticing that you've been upset lately. What do you want to tell us what that feels like? And I'm like, like it takes time for like for it to speak, or my shoulder, or like, and like there's like, how old are you? What's the age? So that can sometimes bring up like then an event that could be done with EMDR.
Right. Oh wow. Okay, I need this a lot. I need this a lot. Yeah. It's really.
I could give you their name. They do have a wait list. They do accept OHP, and also you can't tell them that you know me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because then they won't.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
And I know that now that there are a lot more folks, like I know that it would be easier probably for me to find than when I was looking for it 5 years ago when I first heard of it. And I've always sort of like felt not good about IFS, and so I've never even bothered to look into it. But every time I hear about parts work, I'm like, that really sounds. I'm leaning towards that. That's something I want to pursue. So I'm ready to take a break from my current therapist. I don't think she's my best fit at this moment.
Do you know I told you with OHP you can have more than one therapist and they
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing I need to do. But I need to find somebody I can do weekly for one thing. And I'm getting great classes from ITTC, so
that's right.
Yeah, so those are really.
I'm ready for a break.
Yeah, let's take a break
for what we're doing.
Yeah. We've been through a lot in what do we? Oh my God, we've been going for an hour, little over an hour.
Oh, it's always good.
Oh, for sure. Like, how do you? Yeah, I feel really. Feel like there's a lot that's cleared out of me by getting a chance to speak to the stuff that I've been able to speak to, because I haven't. While there are people who are interested and have kind of asked me those sort of questions, we've never had the opportunity to really like get into it and then hear your experience of like, and so I haven't gotten to have this conversation or anything like this. And it's something that I've been wanting really badly. And so, so I really appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah, I'm so glad to hear it too.
Yeah.
I mean, it opens up things for me because, like I said, I'm reading articles and I'm seeing things, and I'm like thinking, and especially with the realm of heading back to school potentially, there's like
and I know a lot of resources now that I've been finding that maybe rather than you have to sift through as much as.
Well, I just found a website that talks about like how to talk to different departments about resources and like how to like what are good questions to come. Like, what do you have for like assistive technology for people with this need? And if they're like, we don't know what assistive technology
You're right,
is,
then they're not right for you.
She gave like terminology for like some people, some schools are proactive and some people are reactive or responsive, and that they're like, well, just if you find that you're having trouble,
I gotta have
we'll
problems.
do this. Which might be a good indicator that is not a school for you because they don't actually have the things in place and they've been figuring it out with you.
And you shouldn't have to suffer before you get
which is going not necessarily a bad thing to help them develop, but it will impact your success in that, like in the education you're paying for.
Right. And once again, you're in a position of educating those around you.
Pay me for that.
Right. Totally. Yep. Okay.
Very so empowered by doing our taxes together because I thought I was going to hand it over to a tax accountant, pay out. I mean, and honestly, I don't save much money from paying TurboTax.
Yeah, right.
But $200, maybe I could get myself a used bike on Craigslist, and I want to move.
And you learned a lot. You learned so much, and
like
stuff.
I was like this close to being like, listen, can I just see what I did like wrong? Like, can I see or what needs to be done differently? And like, I just imagine that would cost more than a normal amount for filing because she could do it probably in her sleep.
Right, but she has to go through it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it was like, fuck, but I'll pay it because it needs to get done,
Right.
And just doing this together and like learning, I'm like, okay. And honestly, like it deserves to be mentioned that I was not in the headspace. Like last night approaching this, I was like, ugh, and I lost sleep over it.
Yeah.
But but that's like, when it's not the time, it's not the time.
Right.
And there's 2 weeks left.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like, okay, walk away from it. And I'm so glad I looked at it last night, because if I had waited longer, I would have been like, time.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And I'm just hoping that what I've done fixes the problem. And if not, then I know I still have that option to just go to the lady and be like, take my money. And
but really
do
the only
thing.
problem is it's not actually a problem. It's just that you had such low income numbers that for whatever, I don't know why the rule is you can't do it online, but that way you also don't have to, I wonder, you probably still have to pay them federal taxes. But anyway, yeah, it's not that you did something wrong, that you have to mail them in.
My errors have been cleared. Now let's review.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's an important thing that even if somebody wanted to didn't want to actually submit them themselves, but really did want somebody to review them, at least the practice of going through it and seeing all the questions, and you understand so much more about business, and now going forward into this year, you've got all these systems, like I'm going to organize this way, and
So
or
at least I could.
Yeah, well, having the idea is better than nothing, but yeah, and now the main thing being that now you understand what counts as expenses, and
but
because there will come a time where we're actually are making really good
I
money.
was just thinking to the point, like last night I was going through the things that I wrote down on random Post-it notes that made sense to me is
Right.
like, I'm going to work. I'm still going to have to do work just to give her the information that she needs.
Right. It's not just
that I made work because I
Yeah.
just went through the things from my phone and on my,
Yeah, it would become a big project when all you may need to do is just print it. Your time, 4 hours and 55 minutes. You crushed it this year.
5 hours and 36.
They said the average was 2, but anyway, I often spend a long time on this.
You crushed this.
Yeah.
Like,
You that's that. You crushed it.
It's like beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
You did it. Okay. Don't add max.
Yeah, they really push it, man. They bring it up again and again and again. I bet there are people who pay for it just because they're like, I don't understand, and so I probably need it.
Paid for flight insurance. I do it because of issues with flying. Yeah,
especially I can see where there are times when it really makes a lot of sense. I'm finishing.
What? How did you do that so quickly? It says review. I have to go.
No, you're where I am. You're at the exact same spot I'm at.
Oh.
See? Okay. Yeah. You're right with me. Here they are asking again. Ooh, create your own will for $39. That's actually something I might want to do.
Oh.
I bet it won't make me do it right this minute. Okay, let me read it one more time. Because really, this is something we keep talking about, and this is well worth.
They're like, maybe I won't pay today.
No, it's just I don't. Maybe they probably won't make me do it right now.
See more. You love the see more function.
Okay. So, perfect. Because I talked to some of my good friends, or one of them's an expert in wills and trusts and all that stuff.
What about this effective date down at the bottom? When purchased by April 18th, 2023, coverage lasts from the date purchased through April 30th, 2024.
What does coverage mean? I mean, I also could just print it. So it's create, edit, and print important documents. Once they're created, I don't need to keep paying. Get step-by-step guidance.
That's an old, they didn't update their terms there.
Right.
That should be for this year.
Right. So
That's annoying.
That is annoying, but we'll see what happens.
$193. That could have been $300 or something else.
That's what you're paying that for all that good education
Yeah.
that you got by going through the torture.
I do.
Like, come over here and dance.
But it's finalizing. It doesn't say it's done yet. Oh, I can't dance because I gotta save it. I still have to grade it.
Look, they got the dancing. They're dancing. They're dancing on the street. Can I see your boots? Because you got cute boots.
I don't have
No.
my boots. Oh, we're barefoot.
Oh, man.
It's too nice out for boots. Okay, One more thing. It says before you see your refund.
Boots. I love those things. Just one more thing before you see your refund, a confirmation email. I mean, just go ahead, skip and continue because there's no other option. Oh,
You probably have to click on something from inside the email.
But there you go. Now it's asking you if you want to log into Credit Karma, which is it comes with TurboTax. And really the only benefit is the credit score. If you already get that, then
I have Credit Karma already.
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
you can take me to tax home. Do you really want to give it up? Quit pushing me, TurboTax.
I have Credit Karma. They send me emails all the time whether I want it or not.
So can I know you're
Oh,
wrapping
look,
up, but can I give you a little
you
bit
could have
about
sent me this, I bet.
Can I tell you a little bit about CapCut?
Huh?
CapCut. Can I
What
tell
about
you a
it?
little bit about it?
I
have you
have
tried it?
got to
You
get
gotta
going.
go?
I've got
Okay.
people messaging me,
Oh, okay.
and I've been ignoring them.
Okay.